Welcome to Inside the News. I'm Bruce Andriatch, managing editor of the Buffalo News, here today with reporter Patrick Lakamp. Today we're talking about a story that Pat has been working on for quite a while that has to do with the city of Jamestown and a problem they've been dealing with there for a long, long time. Pat, how did this story get started?
I covered federal court for the paper, and there have been some big cases. A DEA agent convicted of corruption, the Faro Strip Club case, the Peyton Dendron. So those are big cases. But what I noticed when I would walk around other courtrooms to touch base with what's happening in other parts of the building, there'd be a Jamestown case, and one day after another. And so early in 2025, I just kind of kept informal track of Jamestown drug cases. And at one point in April, I think there were more defendants from Jamestown than there were in Buffalo. So that's when I got a tally for the entire year. And pleas, sentencings, arraignments. When I see a drug case come through the courthouse, I would take note of where it was from, what it involved, fentanyl or heroin or cocaine, who the defendants were, and what happened to them.
I think the obvious question, and the one that you and I started talking about a year ago, is why Jamestown, of all places?
I think geography plays some role. It's kind of a hub between some bigger cities like Buffalo and Erie and Rochester. But I also think it's where the customers are. And there are a lot of customers in Jamestown, and the lawyers and judges and who have talked to, and the counselors that we've talked to, said that a lack of opportunity, jobs, plays a role. One judge told me that people go to Jamestown expecting opportunities, they don't find any at all. And so I think that a lot plays in, some of the economic conditions in Jamestown.
Yeah. I mean, they don't find opportunities, but they do find a pretty vibrant drug trade there, which I think is really what this comes down to. Is there anything about reporting this story that really surprised you beyond just the Jamestown's a pretty small place for there to be this much activity of this kind?
At first it was a surprise, but then as the year passed, I saw it more often. It was the defendants thanking not just the judge at their sentencing, but the prosecutor. And these are people who might be sentenced to 4 or 5 years, or who have been in pretrial custody for 4 or 5 years, and they're thanking the prosecutor. The arrest saved their life. And then the prosecutors often would work with probation to get them into rehab, and then, stick with them. I was surprised also by how long it took sometimes for a case from arraignment to sentencing. It gets stretched 2-3 years. Right. We had a couple that, they were sentenced 5 years after their first appearance in court. And often why that is, there's a lot of reasons. One of them is, they spend some time, sometimes over a year in rehab. And so when they reach the day of sentencing, they're clean for the first time in years. And they're thankful for having a shot at getting their life back.
And these mostly are users exclusively, or users who also got into dealing?
That's often the case.
Yeah.
They found themselves needing to get money to supply themselves to get their own drugs. So often they end up helping the dealers. There's one defendant. His nickname was Joey Cracks. We had 22 other people linked to him as dealers, and many of them they're also addicts.
Yeah. One of the things that you came across was very often when you're following a defendant in one of these cases, you found out that the victim might be very close to them, that they might have even been lifelong friends.
Yeah, I remember there was one defendant who was sentenced to 25 years in prison. He was one of the bigger traffickers in Jamestown, and one of his customers who died from an overdose. The defendant said, John was like a brother to me. They're selling to anyone who will buy their drugs.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have to say, in those cases, there is no forgiveness from
Right.
from the victims' families. Often they're there and they give very emotional statements about what they see is not just uh, addiction and money. They see betrayal.
Right.
They see someone who could have helped their loved one, who instead provided the drugs that killed them.
Yeah. This is a problem that's been going on for a long time. And the idea that there is a solution probably seems a little bit naive, but what are some of the approaches to trying to solve this problem you saw?
So the cases that ended up with some redemption at the end or some hope, some possibility of getting their lives back on track, this is what happened. There was the arrest. At some point, they had to be arrested and given a chance to go to rehab. So it's the arrest, it's going to rehab, and rehab is not just like a 30-day program. There was
Right.
one defendant who went to like inpatient for a month or two, and then ended up going to a place in Batavia for over a year. It took a long time. These are defendants who come to court at their first appearance missing teeth,
Right.
malnourished, strung out. They're like in tough shape. So years later, when they're at sentencing, it's because they've been to rehab. The rehab happened because they were arrested. And I also saw that the ones who seem to have hope, whether or not they're going to go to jail or not, or do time served, they had someone in the public gallery. They had family there, or friends, or someone. They had someone who stuck with them, or who came back. Everyone who I saw thank a prosecutor, thank a probation officer, thank a judge, also turned around and thanked their parents
Yeah.
or siblings. And the ones who going away for 25 years usually did not have anyone in the gallery.
Yeah.
But they also have, so you have the arrest, the rehab, the family. They also had to have something to go to.
Yeah.
And for some, it was a job. Some people had to leave Jamestown. I remember a woman saying that she knew she couldn't live if she stayed in Jamestown. So she came to Buffalo. She started working in the restaurant industry as a waiter. Now she's a manager of restaurants, has her kids back, just got married. She had something to go to. So maybe it's a job, maybe it's training, maybe it's school, but it has to be something.
Right. And I know it's not easy, and I know this is not the last time we'll be hearing about this, but with any luck, drawing some attention to this will help. Pat, thank you so much for that, and thank you all for reading the Buffalo News.